Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This is John Block, House District 51 State Representative, and this is pretty much just a weekly update of what happened this week and what you need to know about what has happened and then what is going to happen next week. So I'm just going to start off going day by day and tell you what happened at the legislature this week. Number one, I just want to tell you this has probably been the busiest first week that I've ever seen, at least in my couple of years at the legislature. The radical left is really front loading their legislative agenda to do what they can to ram as much crazy stuff through as humanly possible. And so myself, Representative Lord, and other folks, we're working extraordinarily hard to stop this horrendous legislation that's going to absolutely hurt you, the New Mexico taxpayer. So thank you so much for your prayers. Thank you so much for your support over the last couple weeks. And so this was really the first real week of legislative action. And so I'm going to go through what happened in the week in my committees and in what I've seen. And then I'm just going to give you a little update about what's going on next week. So starting on Monday, Representative Lord and we got ready for our CPAC meeting, which met on Tuesday. So we got all the information, all of the analyses for legislation, and we did a deep dive on what we were going to see on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, in the House Consumer and Public Affairs Committee, where myself, Representative Lord, sit, there were many horrible bills. And so I'm just going to go through a little bit about what we heard. There was a red flag bill. It was a red flag expansion to make it a lot easier to file a red flag and take away someone's constitutional rights without even considering their due process as set in the Constitution. So that's one thing that passed committee. That was HB 12. Another bill was to criminalize the secondhand sale of tickets at nonprofit events. So it increases what they called scalping, which I find to be a really stupid word, by the way, but they essentially increased the penalties for that. And that was something that I did not like. I certainly had questions about. That's House Bill 26. The next bill that came to our committee that I am going to say was probably some of the worst legislation that I have seen in this legislature was House Bill 27. It's from a representative named Cates. And this person called Cates put forward this bill that would ban librarians from removing horrific pornographic books from schools, or not schools, rather public libraries. So libraries would essentially be banned from removing pornographic content targeting kids. And we mentioned in the committee, there are multiple books that are indeed pornographic. Some of these books are horrifying. Some even talk about child pornography and just kiddie porn and all this horrible stuff that is just disgusting in so many ways. Myself and Representative Lord, we asked these tough questions, and the sponsor essentially tried to stonewall us the entire time, and it was not very good. If I was the person putting a bill forward in committee, I would know my bill front to back, and I would know exactly how to answer questions and not stonewall. And so this individual tried to attack us, tried to claim that we're doing theatrics when it comes to asking questions, but in reality, you, the people, sent us, the representatives, to Santa Fe to do the hard work and ensure that we're getting good legislation. So that's what happened in CPAC as well. There was one kind of good bill, and we voted for it. It was House Bill 2. It passed unanimously, and it was pretty much to close the gap that we have regarding people who are not competent to stand trial, and it would ensure that those individuals are held in facilities pending trial if they're not competent. So if they have mental issues, etc., this would ensure that there are clearer boundaries and that the catch and release is not as bad, at least for these specific defendants. So also that morning on Tuesday, I presented a bill in House Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee, and it was a bill that would put renewables on the track to be exactly taxed at the same level as oil and gas. Oil and gas currently pays 3.75% in severance taxes. This would put an excise tax on renewables so that they are contributing their fair share into the state's economy. And so, of course, the big solar companies and the big wind companies came out in full force, attacking the bill, claiming it would clobber their industry. And so, quite frankly, it is time. It's high time that they cannot live rent-free in New Mexico. And so this bill would have done just that to put them on an equal playing field. This bill, unfortunately, died in the committee on a 6-4 vote, but it did have a very important conversation about if these radical leftists are going to push their Green New Deal, the ETA, Energy Transition Act, then they need to pay their fair share if they're going to clobber the oil and gas industry. Because if we don't have that money in the general fund, if we don't have that money in the severance tax fund, then and the severance fund, we absolutely will not have money for capital improvements in the state. We won't have money for education. We will not have money for healthcare. We won't have money for individual projects that fuel the budget, the giant $11 billion budget. And just to be clear, this is not going to replace oil and gas. There's no way that renewables can, because according to the FIR from last year of the bill, that's a fiscal impact report, to this year of the bill, this legislation would only bring in around $40 to $150 million per year. That is a drop in the bucket compared to the $10.8 billion budget that's being proposed and talked about right now during the session. So that's something that I brought forward. I'll continue to ask for equality with taxation, because if someone's getting taxed a certain rate, then someone who's also producing energy in the state must comply at the exact same level. That's only fair. Otherwise, we should just do away with all the taxes altogether. So next on Wednesday, and I know that's a little lengthy, sorry. On Wednesday in Government Committee, we heard a proposal for HJR 1, which requires the legislature to meet for two 45-day sessions instead of the 60-day session on even or on odd number years, and then a 30-day on even. This would make it 45-45. But the trick to this legislation, which is a bad and horrible unintended consequence, is if they put this bill forward and it goes in, then legislation that dies in the first session is allowed to move to the second session and pass the next time we meet. Meaning more bad bills get passed, more horrible legislation jumps across the finish line, and then more money is taken out of your pocket, taken out of my pocket, and everyone across the state. And these horrible ideas will have a lot more time and energy to be rammed through. So that's one thing that we heard. HJR 2 was second. That is a constitutional amendment that is meant to take away the governor's veto, line item veto power, and just, well, not line item veto power, but just pocket veto. So currently in the state, you can have a pocket veto if you're the governor. You don't have to say anything about why you vetoed a bill. This would make you have to say why you vetoed a bill. However, again, these bills or these resolutions are not very well done. So this resolution would not tell them that they have to give a specific reason. So if I was the governor and I was vetoing a bill, I could just say, I don't like the bill. Boom. That would be good enough. It pretty much gives no clear definition as to what is a explanation for a veto. So I could say, I don't like the bill. Boom, done. And end of story. And it would pretty much be a useless resolution. So of course, I voted against it. It's not ready. Another bill that we heard is HB 47. It's enabling legislation to the constitutional amendments we passed in the last election. So this would ensure that those constitutional amendments are put into statute in the tax laws, and this would just be an update to those. Okay, on Thursday, Representative Lord and I, we battled for your rights in House Consumer and Public Affairs Committee again. And so they had to put more horrible bills in that committee. First one was HB 38 that would increase. Okay, so it would pretty much not be in compliance with the federal laws regarding these devices that are added to firearms to let them fire more rapidly. And so this legislation is not mimicking federal laws, and it absolutely is not ready. And we definitely voted no on HB 38. We also voted no on HB 39, and this would essentially ban anyone from having their Second Amendment right to own a firearm if they had juvenile records. Even if you had one charge in your record regarding a firearm when you were a juvenile, this would take away your constitutional rights for 10 years. And so that's not okay. I don't think that's cool. I think you should have your constitutional Second Amendment right. So absolutely, I voted no on that bill. And the next bill, oh my gosh, this one was really bad. So there was a bill that pretty much would do artificial intelligence regulation. This artificial intelligence regulation did this complex 30-page bill from Representative Chandler. She's an attorney. It's a 30-page bill with all these convoluted words, phrases, definitions, and it essentially would inject DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, into the AI space. So AI that is meant to be predictive would be regulated in such a way that it is forced into an equity framework for DEI purposes. The bill is so convoluted, it harbors just total misinformation, and it also, in my opinion, would kill industry. It would kill any innovation when it comes to AI. And so I voted against it. I thought it was a very stupid bill. And then one more bill that came to our committee, HB 50, it was legislation that essentially would, and it was a good bill, by the way, HB 50, good bill, Representative Borrego. This would increase penalties and criminalize the carjacking epidemic that we have. So carjackers would be criminalized for this horrible act. New Mexico is #1 in carjackings. We see people coming to the state who have had their cars, their RVs stolen, and it's just a terrible epidemic. A similar bill to this one, it died in this same committee last legislative session, or maybe it was 2 legislative sessions ago, and this bill would have essentially done the same thing. This one finally passed because they weakened it, but it still would do something. So unfortunately, it's not as strong as the last bill, but it did pass the committee. Okay, now let's go to Friday, yesterday, in House Government Elections and Indian Affairs Committee. That committee hears a lot of different things. One of them was HB 69. It just mimics federal laws and federal regulations regarding the reimbursement for student loans for teachers. And so it just implements the federal law. That one was unanimously passed. Next one we heard was HB 75, and it was the last bill that we heard that day. And it purports to have a funding increase for these community and county and tribal health councils. So it sounds good, right? On the surface, health councils, who can be against that? But in that committee, we heard that the funding that they're asking for, $44 million, is a 1,500% increase from current funding levels. #1, that's a lot of money to increase for these. #2, for each council to get, they said they need $184,000. If they got $184,000 for each council, that would only amount to $8 million, around $7 to $8 million. So if that's the case, why are they asking for 44 million? And the 44 million includes unspoken of funding for all other services that they supposedly provide, but this council is not a council with any power. It's just advisory. So we're giving all this money just for an advisory council. And then here's the kicker. In the legislation and the presentation, they talked about how they wanted to put in to these healthcare councils, or these health councils, climate change and healthcare, how they transcend. So they're talking about the intersection of healthcare and climate change, which really grinded my gears because I am sick and damn tired of people trying to politicize healthcare to push their agendas. I just want healthcare to be healthcare. And I'm sick and darn tired of them putting this climate change propaganda into healthcare. Another thing that they had that really I was angry about was the sponsor of the bill let their expert talk to us, and he said, all of us are DEI hires. All of us are, everyone, including me, including everyone who's involved in the state is a DEI hire. And so that really pissed me off as well. So I absolutely voted no on the bill. I think it's not ready. It's definitely injected with woke propaganda. And sure, I support health councils in general, but I do not support them putting any kind of climate change or DEI into healthcare that is not where it belongs. So later in the bill, or later in the day, rather, yesterday, I presented in the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee a bill that I think is very important. And actually, many people came to support the bill. It's HB 44, and you can find it on I'll put the links in the comments, and I'll also put them on my weekly email blast. And I'm sure this video will be in that. But that bill would essentially do a few things. It would ensure that children are protected from online harmful content. That means pornography. And so children would be protected because there would be age verification required on any website online that has a third of its content or more pornography. This would essentially ensure that children are protected from this harmful and degrading industry. And we see the statistics. 100% of kids under 15 who are males have seen pornography, and I believe 85% of females under that age have seen pornography by the time they get, I believe it's to 11, I believe. And so this is even before their first romantic relationship. And so we shouldn't be putting pornography available to children. This merely would protect those children from that by having reasonable verification standards that are in compliance with constitutional metrics. This bill, I heard a lot of good testimony, and so I am going to continue to work on the bill. I had it rolled because I wanted to have time to work on it, talk to stakeholders, and see how we can get it done right. And so this bill will continue to come up in the committee, but it may have some changes because we want to make sure that it actually can pass and help save lives and save the healthcare and safety of children. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking out for. I'll tell you about that bill next time it comes through the committee once we have those changes. And so a few things in the week ahead. So there's a lot of evil bills that are being sponsored and being put forward in the legislative process right now. And so you need to be aware of what's happening next week, and you need to be able to testify. We need people to testify. This week, we only had 7 or 8 people testify against a horrific anti-gun bill, the red flag expansion. That's not okay. That's not acceptable. That is not good enough. If you care about your rights, you need to stand up and you need to go to the Capitol, or you need to go on Zoom and you need to fight for them. Myself and Representative Lord, we fought for hours and hours this week, fighting for your rights. And if you care about your constitutional rights, you need to help us. Because if they don't see that we have any kind of enthusiasm when it comes to stopping these horrific anti-constitution bills, then they're just going to be able to ram them through, and they will feel invincible as they do right now. And so we need you to help us. So this week, I'm giving you a task. This is your homework for the week. Write emails or go on Zoom or do both to stop this anti-gun bill that's going to be heard in the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. Remember that. The bill is going to be on Wednesday, the red flag expansion. I'll have to get the bill number for you again, but that's going to be in the committee on Wednesday. On Monday, rather, in my committee, the House Government Elections and Indian Affairs Committee, the first thing on the agenda is the Green Amendment. The Green Amendment is a radical extremist resolution that is trying to kill the oil and gas industry by giving a constitutional right to clean air and clean water, which is, it sounds great, but what it would do is open up the state to lawsuits, multi-million-dollar lawsuits, and cripple the oil and gas industry into oblivion. That's not okay. We can't allow that to stand. So I need you to help me. Next on the agenda, we also see in committees this week, there will be HB 35, which is the Children's Health Protection Zone. That's going to come to the Energy Committee on Tuesday. That bill is really bad, and I've talked about it in previous videos on this platform before. This bill is going to force a 1-mile buffer zone around all oil and gas production. All of it. Done. Boom. That means communities like Hobbs, Lovington, Carlsbad, Artesia, Farmington, annihilated from oil and gas production anywhere near a mile of a school. And they claim that there's some kind of health data because some kids have asthma in certain areas. And so if a kid has asthma, that means we need to cripple an entire industry and destroy it in its entirety because they're using this fake science that is not, it's not science-based, it's not peer-reviewed, And what it does is it hurts our economy, it hurts jobs, and it kills the 30,000 jobs, direct jobs in oil and gas, and the 100,000 jobs, including those which have other industries that assist oil and gas. So that would kill 100,000 jobs in the state of New Mexico with the stroke of a pen if that legislation was signed, and I'm sure it would be if it passes. So we need you to help kill this legislation, which is going to be detrimental to all New Mexicans. It'll be detrimental to the bottom line, and we need your assistance in killing that bill. There are many other really bad bills that are coming up the pipeline, and I need your help. So this week, go to nmlegis.gov. Please testify against these bills and do what you can to stop them, because you know me, you know other Republicans in the House and Senate are working very hard to stop terrible legislation, but it takes folks like you to help do that. Thank you so much for your attention to this. I hope this video didn't go too long, but I appreciate your time, your attention, and please, if you want to keep your rights and you want to ensure that New Mexico is safe and protected for the next generation, then you need to ensure that all of us come, show up, work hard, do what we got to do, and win for New Mexico. Thank you. God bless you, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks again. Goodbye.